Travis Wayne Goodsell, as has been my tradition while lonely, to do YouTube videos for my birthday instead of living a life of luxury for my birthday. I saw a news article about one of the Russian oligarchs who've been sanctioned. He's now crying that he won't last 3 weeks now. The richer you are, the harder you fall. Because if you take away everything from a homeless man, he doesn't have far to fall. So, since we're on the countdown to General Conference, because the United States government refuses to lock up the criminal organization and shut it down once again for their severe crimes, we'll discuss General Conference. From the Joseph Smith Papers, page 2, under the search for General Conference, I see at the October 1841 General Conference in Nauvoo, Hiram Smith spoke about Babbitt, Almon Babbitt, his teachings that were considered contrary to the revelations of God. We might. Let me, hold on here. I'll need you. I did find William Cowdery finally. That was one of the questions I had. What did William Cowdery do in the church? I knew he was involved with the Book of Mormon, but I didn't know what he had done in the church. I found out. He was the president of the Quorum of the Priests. You see, kids, as much as the church violates Utah's own laws that corporations, the church is a corporation, are not allowed to have children in any kind of office. That's a Utah law. Nonetheless, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints changed Joseph Smith's administration to have children be in the Aaronic priesthood. And thus it's the Aaronic priesthood that does all the grunt dirty work in the church for cleanup and helping old women across the street. But also picking up tithing slips, dear God. But yeah, all of that's against the law. That's child slave labor. It doesn't matter if they're not getting paid for it. The church is a corporation. Children are not supposed to be in any kind of office. Yeah, there's William Cowdery, president of the Quorum of Priests. Let's see, Almon Babbitt. I'm not seeing him immediately. I'd have to do some further researching, I guess, to find out what he was a part of. So let's find out. Almon W. Babbitt. Almond Okay. Born in Cheshire, Massachusetts, to Ira and Nancy Babbitt. Graduated Ohio State at Cincinnati. Became licensed to practice law. And he violated the law? He must have sucked. They teach at Ohio State. In 6 states. Married Julianne Johnson, 23rd November 1833, and is thought to have joined, it's in the Joseph Smith Papers, sometime in 1833. In 1834, he was a member of Zion's Camp. On 28 February 1835, what was the date on this? October 1841, okay. We're far away from it. He was ordained as one of the first 70s. There we go. He later became a high priest. So it's the 70s. But they don't say when he became a high priest. But, because 70s are involved in preaching the gospel with the quorum of traveling 12. So that makes sense as to why he's being accused of preaching or teaching Babbitt's teachings that were considered contrary to the revelations of God, and detrimental to the interest of the church in his discourse. Yep. And so, where does this come from? Where indeed? Well, section 43. I already have it on the screen here. Bruce R. McConkie puts, revelation given through Joseph Smith the prophet at Kirtland, Ohio, in February 1831. So this was before Babbitt joined. So maybe he didn't get to it yet. He was too busy working on faith to read the scriptures. At this time, some members of the church were disturbed by people making false claims as revelators. You're a revelator, I'm a revelator, she's a revelator too. They're a revelator. The prophet inquired of the Lord and received this communication addressed to the elders of the church under the quorum of 12. The traveling 12. There's the administration. Did picture get on this one too? Yep. From 1835 to 1839, so it's different than the original elders from section 43. But you have a change in the leadership structure, in which you have the general church presidency, and then to the left you have the presidency and high council, not the quorum of traveling 12. Then under them are the quorum of high priests, quorum of elders. A separate line from the general church presidency is the bishopric, the presiding bishopric as we know it, and they are over the quorum of priests. Notice it's quorum of high priests. I've been telling you this. This is where I get it from. Quorum of teachers, quorum of deacons, and they're all adults over 21 years of age. No one under 21 years of age. Why would I say 21? The legal age of an adult is 18, Travis. Yeah, since when? Which amendment in the Constitution And when was that given? You got to pay attention to those kinds of things. And so, a separate line is the quorum of traveling 12 and the quorum of 70. And then under them is the presiding elders. That's different than the quorum of elders. And then the traveling elders. Completely different organizational structure, huh? Yep. And so it's difficult to distinguish from our current thing, as Bruce R. McConkie is purposely keeping us from knowing the truth, as to the specific elders being referred to here. But as they are claiming to be revelators, we can feel confident, as we can fact check it in the Joseph Smith papers for this section, that it's the ministering angels under Thomas B. Marsh. Was he this early? I know he was after 1835. That'll be interesting to know. But prior to, Joseph Smith was, in the beginning, the presiding elder of the church. And it took until 1836 to become a man like Moses, after the Kirtland Temple dedication, and then the week later, that fateful day on Passover in the Kirtland Temple. First part deals with matters of church policy. The latter contains a warning that the elders are to give to the nations of the earth. So he alludes to it, that the elders prior to 1835 were the missionaries. And then it became the quorum, the 12, traveling 12, and the 70, with the elders and the teachers. Yeah, traveling elders and presiding elders. Hearken, O ye elders of my church, and give ear to the words which I shall speak unto you. For behold, verily, verily, I say unto you, that you have received a commandment for a law, Babbitt, lawyer, unto my church, through him whom I have appointed, unto you to receive commandments and revelations from my hand. And who is that? Only Joseph Smith. And this ye shall know assuredly, that there is none other appointed unto you to receive commandments and revelations, until he be taken, if he abide in me. Joseph Smith was still around, so no one else in the church but the president of the church. You understand this, Mormons? This is the doctrine of the church, and no Mormon is allowed to go contrary to the doctrine, as Almond was being accused of by Hiram Smith, who was prophet, seer, revelator, translator, and patriarch at the time, in 1841. And this shall be a law unto you, that you receive not the teachings of any that shall come before you as revelations or commandments. So yesterday I was watching a conference talk by Dallin H. Oaks, back when he was an apostle, about 7 years ago, was the YouTube video claim from the General Conference YouTube channel, in which he was talking about the second coming. He was giving revelations that were contrary. Oops. And I keep putting out the call. James E. Faust, as counselor to Gordon B. Hinckley, who I told you guys in a video that I met on a train, talked philosophy. And then I realized after he had gotten off that it was him. Wait a minute, was that? Oops. No wonder everybody was staring at me. They weren't listening to me. They were going, oh, doesn't he know this is President Faust? He has the courage and the balls to... Yep. That was, 20 years ago. And so anyway, he gave a talk, his final talk. I was sure it was his final talk, but the church has changed it because I can't find it. I looked for other talks as well. I cannot find him saying it. And as we all know, Elder Pullman in October 1984 as exposed by the Salt Lake Tribune, said something contrary to this church's doctrine and made him redo it during the week so that it can be put in the conference reporting and such as approved. And Salt Lake Tribune got a response from the church saying, we can do whatever we want. Screw you. And so, yeah, it wouldn't surprise me at all that that was taken out. But I heard him say it because I was like, what? Whoa, dude, that's balls. He told the apostles. He spoke to the apostles and told them not to go and give their own revelations and commandments to the church, contrary to what the president of the church gives. And it's gone. Anybody out there who has that talk on a VHS tape, digitize it, put it on YouTube, let me know. That tape is gold. That is like brass plates discovery stuff. And it's gone. So, let's see. And so, that's the doctrine. Alright? Now that I've set it up for you, let us go to the infamous talk that I keep telling you about, especially lately, ever since I found it, 19 July 1840. As reported by Martha Jane Knowlton Correa. View entire transcript. And we'll go down to the fun part. We'll just do a segment part. We'll go do a whole commentary of the whole thing. We'll do the fun one. So, come on, where is it? Is it I? Is it I? Okay, there's Bloodthirsty, so it's right there. It is. So talking about the prophecy from section 101, verse 43, as we have it in our Doctrine and Covenants. Joseph Smith, the only one to receive revelations and commandments, and yet some reason this did not get put in the Doctrine and Covenants in 1844 by Brigham Young, nor the one in 1876 before he died. Those were the two additions after Joseph Smith during Brigham Young's lifetime. 1921, Heber J. Grant did some further purging, but nothing was added. John Taylor added some stuff, but with the United States shutting down the church, they were not allowed in anymore. Which, because Brigham Young claimed section 132, which was added the year before he died, claimed it was from Joseph Smith, the United States caved on that one and didn't demand that that be removed, not knowing that Brigham Young had purposely removed what Joseph Smith had said, which was monogamy. Pulled a fast one on the government to keep polygamy as the law of the Lord, which Nelson then put in according to his law in regards to the law of chastity. Bringing back polygamy, girls, and it ain't going to be good for you. Despite all the single women in the older singles ward saying that they're losing heart about finding a guy to marry. And so many told me that they would welcome polygamy because it means they get somebody. And I can tell you from experience, when the spouse doesn't love you, it ain't a good marriage. And the sex ain't no good either. So don't be fooled into thinking that that may be your only hope. Because I saw others give up and marry outside the church. And yes, the church has no authority, as I'm about to read, but still, it's disheartening to see women give up because of the corruption of the church. So anyway, so he says, but before this fulfillment of section 101, verse 43, parable, the time shall be, when these who are now my friends shall become my enemies. Who's he speaking to? Who's in the audience? 1840, Brigham Young is now the president of the Quorum of 12 Apostles, traveling 12. And I'm going to tease you here, because if you haven't read this already, it's your fault. As I told you, as I went through getting the documents for my own collection, Brigham Young, as I put the pictures of his license and what it said on the license, Brigham Young, as I found out in minutes and other such, the traveling 12 are only to preach the revelations of Joseph Smith and the scriptures, section 43. He is not even to inhabit, to be in where there is an established stake of Zion. Once they've established a stake of Zion, the 12 stay out. Only general conferences, when called upon, can they then speak in a stake in Zion. If the conference is held in a stake in Zion and they are called upon to speak, that's it, that's all. They are not allowed to go to West Jordan, Elder Holland, and send me a death threat. Things have changed under Brigham Young, haven't they? And so that's their only assignment. They're not to be judges in Israel. They're not to be administrators. They don't even excommunicate. The only thing they do is within their quorum, they vote for who the president should be. And Brigham Young made sure that that was done after the Danites chased out Thomas B. Marsh and William Smith. And so, yes, the remaining loyalists to Brigham Young, the leader of the Danites, all voted, all in favor, unanimous. Brigham Young, you are now the president. And so Joseph Smith came back out of Liberty Jail in 1839 to find out what he had done, and called him Judas there too. And refers to the good man, which was Thomas B. Marsh. William Smith got put back in to spy for Joseph Smith. But, Samuel Smith, he was put in the High Council, the Administration 12. Big difference when you know the truth. This is all from the Joseph Smith papers, guys. And enemies shall seek to take, when those who are now my friends shall become my enemies, and shall seek to take my life. Who was left in Carthage jail after Joseph Smith shot at and chased out the mob? Who was left? Which quorum were they a part of? Willard Richards, John Taylor. How did Joseph Smith know? 4 years in advance. And there are those now before me. Who's before them? Not just Willard Richards and John Taylor, but Brigham and Heber, etc., who will more furiously pursue me. I know exactly what that's like by the current presidency of the church. More diligently seek my life and be more bloodthirsty upon my track than ever were the Missouri mobbers. You say among yourselves, as did them of old. Is it I? And is it I? But I know these things by the visions of the Almighty. So are Mormons hiding from this? Yes. So let's again go over note 14. See Matthew 26, 21, and 22, and the actual quote, Mark Mark means warlike, which is interesting for Mars. 14, 18 through 19. And if you've been watching my videos on the signs in the heavens and the likeness of things on the earth, I've already indicated to you, Nelson is Mars. He fits the events on earth with Mars, according to the signs in the heavens that are given for the latter days. So when Thomas Monson died, yeah, who was at the judgment now? Nelson, Mars. Warlike. And instead of being like Brigham Young, who wanted to physically fight America to conquer it and take over, the United States shut them down. And so now, under Heber J. Grant, which Nelson is now number 11, not 17, they're paying mercenaries to do all the dirty work. Just like Putin has now gotten Syria to send 40,000 mercenaries into the war. And the United States, they're still not wanting to cross that line and declare war to save Ukraine. Putin already has Belarus, and now he's got Syria. And China, lest we forget China. It's coming. It's coming. And Joseph Smith talks about it. And so, Mark 14, 18 through 19, what is he referring to? What could it possibly be? Is it I, and is it I? What could it possibly be? We'll start at 16. And his disciples went forth and came into the city, and found as he had said unto them, and they made ready the Passover. And in the evening he cometh with the 12, and they sat and did eat. Jesus said, this is the Last Supper, guys. The Last Supper wedding feast of the Lamb at the temple for the latter days. Apocalyptic literature. Jesus, the apocalyptic character hero, said, verily I say unto you, one of you which eateth with me. Not there are those among, what was it again exactly? There are those now before me. Plural, not singular. One of you which eateth with me shall betray me. And of course we already know, because it's in the Old Testament, Genesis. I just did the video yesterday for you, for Sunday school. Judah betraying Joseph Smith of Egypt. And they began to be sorrowful, and say unto him one by one, is it I? And another said, is it I? Joseph Smith is referring to the Last Supper, about his murder, and is calling the quorum of the 12, led by Brigham Young, as Judas. So how then did Brigham Young become the president of the church upon Joseph's death? Well, I guess there was no succession that Joseph Smith gave us, right? That's what it says in the succession crisis under Wikipedia. Succession crisis, Wikipedia. We need Latter-day Saints, because there's another crisis. So let me read to you what it says. For roughly 6 months after Smith's death, several people competed to take over his role. The leading contenders being Sidney Rigdon, Brigham Young, and James Strang. The majority of Latter-day Saints elected. Who wrote this? To follow Young's leadership. There was no election. There was a conference held August 6th in which Sidney Rigdon, Brigham Young, and Lucy Mack Smith spoke. That's it. That's all. And at the end of it, people did what they wanted, followed who they wanted. The Danites were so large that they bullied the takeover. Here's what was supposed to have happened, because it's not the majority of Latter-day Saints who vote, elect. Again, we have to go to Joseph Smith. He tells us, and he already told us way back, March 28th, 1835. Section 107 of the Doctrine and Covenants. And in verse 21, he talks about why Brigham Young kicked out the guys who would not vote for him to replace Thomas B. Marsh and have a unanimous vote. A majority may, every decision, verse 27, made by either of these quorums. And the reason why they're those two quorums only is because I found it in the Joseph Smith papers. Joseph Smith had organized in 1835 the quorum of 12 and traveling 12 and the 70, and that chart that I read off to you, and gave them their licensing and thus a talk to explain their duties in their new calling. That's why only those two, and not the high priest quorum of high priests, or any of the other quorums. Let's see. Every decision made by either of these quorums must be by the unanimous voice of the same. That is, every member in each quorum must be agreed to its decisions in order to make their decisions of the same power or validity one with another. And so then, what is the process for succession when Joseph Smith dies? We go to verse 21 that explains generally for all quorums. Of necessity, there are presidents or presiding officers growing out of, and I find it hilarious that Royal Skousen couldn't catch on because, well, no, I just don't need to bring it back up and search for it. He says, unidentified counselors. They don't need them. Just the president for each quorum. Of necessity, there are presidents or presiding officers growing out of or appointed of or from among those who are ordained to the several offices in the two priesthood. So you have a president. One president. No counselors being discussed here. The quorum votes for the president. Not the bishop, not the stake president. The elders are to vote for the Elders Quorum president. Get that stake president out of there. It's an all-new church, isn't it? But when it comes to the president of the church, who has the keys of Moses, verse 91 in section 107, it's amazing how Brigham Young twisted this. See, it's no longer a vote, and it's no longer the key of Moses. It's Peter now. What keys did Brigham Young have in his traveling 12 apostles? Oh, Peter. That's coincidental. Joseph Smith had Moses, Brigham Young only had Peter, and Brigham Young exalted himself to claim Moses, but switching it with Peter. So verse 22, this is how it was supposed to have been done, but wasn't. But Wikipedia is saying, oh, the majority elected. Liar! I'm a witch, not your wife. After what I just heard, I'm not sure I want to be that anymore. Of the Melchizedek priesthood, 3. Now 1. 3 presiding high priests. Chosen. Actual vote. Not sustaining. There's no sustaining here. Chosen by the body. What body? The whole Melchizedek priesthood. And they vote for 3 presiding high priests. Not counselors, 3 presiding high priests. Right there in the law of Joseph Smith. Appointed and ordained to that office. So here's where the sustaining part comes from. Upheld by the confidence, faith, and prayer of everyone else, the church. Form a quorum of the presidency of the church. Big difference. And so Joseph Smith, as the president, the only president of the church, says that it is the duty of the president of the office of the high priesthood, which thus all 3 would then all share the same key and gifts, is to preside over the whole church and to be like unto Moses. Behold, here is wisdom, to be a seer, a revelator, a translator, and a prophet. And all the gifts which he bestows upon the head of the church. That was not done. And thus the crisis, purposely caused by Brigham Young, so that he can take his Danites and leave. Well, I'm going to take my Danites and sexually traffic the women of the church that we've convinced to be in polygamy, and we're going to commit sex trafficking across out of the United States into Mexico territory. There's a reason why Lucifer's signs, symbols, and doctrines are all over this church. Section 101, guys. Mormons cannot deny this. Just because Brigham Young didn't put it in his Doctrine and Covenants, sorry, what Joseph Smith put makes this legitimate. And I just read to you that Joseph Smith prophesied that Brigham Young is the enemy who would murder Joseph Smith and usurp his church. And so when Nelson got up in conference talking about Jesus this and Jesus that, guess what it actually says? For thus shall. What is shall? It's a future tense, because it was not called. Joseph Smith is saying, he's prophesying, it shall be called, for thus shall my church be called in the last days. Nelson fulfilled it. Even the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And I've done the video where I caught Brigham Young altering the name of the church for the English saints, the British saints who converted to the church. All the converts in Britain and Europe and all that. So when Brigham Young murdered Joseph Smith, fled the country, sexually trafficking the hostage women, makes it to the Salt Lake Valley. The United States comes in the next year. It's now American territory, not the Kingdom of Deseret anymore, not Zion. And so Brigham Young retaliated the next year after that, 1849, and incorporated the Perpetual Immigration Fund to bring forth the converts from Europe to his church that he specifically named so that they would not go to Sidney Rigdon or James Strang or anybody else but him. That is the name that they would know it by, and Brigham Young called for them and paid even the poor through this Perpetual Immigration Fund so that he can build up the number of Mormons in Salt Lake, because the United States shut down his kingdom and then 1851 Brigham Young openly declared polygamy as the law of God in violation of the United States laws. We believe in being subject to kings, presidents, rulers, magistrates, and obeying, honoring, sustaining the law. Oh wait, that was not put in Brigham Young's Doctrine and Covenants or Pearl of Great Price, because there wasn't any. Pearl of Great Price was made official canon after his death. And so, yeah, he didn't know about the Article of Faith from the Wentworth letter. And that's when he created Heavenly Father as Adam, changed the theology of the church. And the United States kept sending in sheriffs and judges and congresspersons, and Brigham Young kept chasing them out, and the United States kept sending in new ones. And thus, Brigham Young sent a terrorist threat letter to the United States: stay out of my land. And so the United States sent in the army. And so Brigham Young, realizing that his plans were not going to succeed, he then spread out the Mormons through settlements up and down to create a wall to keep the settlers from settling in his land, his kingdom, and thus you get the Mountain Meadows Massacre. That's why that occurred. So yes, guys, he is of the devil, literally, like the Book of Mormon tells us he is. He is the great abominable church. And the United States finally had enough of the Perpetual Immigration Fund and from polygamy. With the Edmunds-Tucker Act, shut down the church officially in 1887. Thus, Heber J. Grant is the founder of the current Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, 1923. And it's on the internet. Others know this. It's not my sacred secret to tell. Because of the Freedom of Information Act, people found it. The church is not true. And not only is it not true, it is Lucifer's literal church. Got his symbols, got his footprints, got his fingerprints, got his blood all over it. The blood of the saints. So, leave the church. Demand the church stop. Demand that the prophets and apostles get out. They paid for the war in Ukraine. Because what's going to happen? The whole world will be at war. And so, like Section 45, you have to flee to Zion for safety, refuge, and peace. This is the trap set by evil people. They purposely set the conditions of your torment, your suffering, and then pretend to be your saviors. Exactly like a psychologist, of whom created that scenario. They set up the conditions of your mental torment and then say, oh, they can help you. They're the only ones who can help you. That's the con. And anybody who falls for it becomes dependent upon them, enslaved by them. Because Mormons have to trust and give loyalty oaths to the church. So that when the government shuts down the church, you've got Mormons who want to fight to save the church, to commit crimes, to save and protect the church. Even if it means betraying, like Judas, the founder of Mormonism, by refusing to read Joseph Smith's words, his revelations, his commandments, that Brigham Young is our enemy. Happy birthday to me.